Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? 2021. It's Sunny back at it again with the podcast. It's always sunny in the six. Hope everybody had a fantastic holiday break. Back to the grind, back to work, back to the hustle, and of course, back to these great podcast episodes. You know, we're starting off the year, and I know some of you have resolutions. Some of you trying to get into healthy eating. We are also in the middle of a pandemic, so nutrition is so important. So today I'm joined by Andy Santis. Who's Andy? Well, Andy is a registered dietitian, has a wealth of knowledge related to nutrition. He's actually published 7 books, 3 of which he's dropped today. We talk about a number of different topics, kind of all over the place, to be honest, because we got a number of questions from Instagram. Try to get through as many of them as I possibly could. We also shoot the shit, get to know Andy personally, his love for soccer, get to know him outside of the nutrition world as well. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. As always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to check out the content that Andy shares on his platform as well, on Instagram. Let's get right to it.
All alone with me, and we're waiting for the sunlight,
You know, we have an actual expert professional in the house, registered dietitian. So what's going on, man?
Not much, I'm just making the most of what was a challenging year, and I'm pretty happy with how I managed it. Had some obstacles and all that, like we all did, but silver linings.
We're gonna dive into that as well, and and talk about how you navigated through this chaotic year. You're at Yonge and Davisville.
I'm at Yonge and Davisville.
So
yep.
we're close by.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy we made this happen. You reached out. We talked about a month ago. Was it?
Yeah. I mean, I saw I must have saw your comment right on Instagram, and I saw that you had a podcast, and I'm like, you know what, I had a great time. I'm like, I'm in this grind mode, let me pop up where I can, and you replied, and here we are. I think I hit you. I don't know if I hit you back once more, maybe.
You know what,
but I don't blame you. I'm sure you get a lot of interest and all that, so it's totally fair.
I have actually, because I think the timing was great, man, because it's 2021. Wow, it sounds weird saying 2021, but it's 2021.
Yeah.
Everyone, whether you're into resolutions or not, I think if there's anything about this pandemic that has kind of given everybody a reminder, it's that, healthy living.
Right.
And to be honest with you, Andy, with me, I think I'm a pretty active person.
Right.
But I've been working out for a couple of days a week.
Okay.
But my friends are always like, Sonny, there's no progress. And I think diet is a massive thing, and I think it's great that you're here today, because I we got a lot of questions online. We'll get into that later.
Nice.
We'll kind of talk a little bit about your journey, how you became a registered dietitian. Yep. But before that, just a pulse check. You mentioned 2020 was, I think, for everybody a bullshit year.
Right.
But how was it for you, man?
Honestly, there's always the personal and professional side. You know what I mean? I would say, and there's challenges in both. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm also fortunate. Even with my work, dietitian stuff. I've written books. I write blogs. I do a lot of social, and above all, my work is pretty transferable online.
Right. Whereas
if you're a chiropractor, or a physiotherapist, or a trainer, and I do feel for a lot of friends and colleagues who are in the fitness industry, I want to just they've had some challenges themselves.
Absolutely.
Gyms closing and stuff like that. So I can't really complain. I mean? I can't really complain. Right.
It's kind of appalling a little bit, because it's you would think that gyms should be open. We talk about this pandemic, and we talk about this virus and whatnot. I think the biggest thing is staying healthy and being healthy. And yet, kind of the gyms, I feel are getting the short end and the brunt end of this in terms of staying closed and being closed, and kind of being that signal or the first stakeholder in terms of, all right, cases are going up, gyms are closed.
It's tough. It's tough. I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers for that. It's true. Physical activity is massively important for mental health. I mean, obviously for physical health. You know what I mean? And it seems like the people in the fitness industry did get, the pandemic has affected different people in different ways. No denying it. And they definitely are a group that many of them are at the short end of the stick. I got a lot of friends and colleagues that they're getting into the online game, and they're making it happen, and they're hustling and doing what they can. But the unfortunate reality is, some people are going to come out unscathed, and some people are going to have some war wounds. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it is.
No, absolutely, man. we know you're a registered dietitian,
Right.
and we're going to talk about how that process, like, is it hard? Like, what's the process of being a registered dietitian? Like, you go to school,
Yeah. So it's,
talk to me about your background. Like,
yeah. So basically you do an undergraduate in a specific degree that is accredited to become a dietitian. So,
Right.
at Ryerson, Guelph, Western, Ottawa, UBC, a couple other places have it, right? So you can't just do any undergrad. It has to be a nutrition specific one.
right.
From there, you apply in a relatively competitive process to get an internship or a master's internship combined, which is like a training / education period. And, so I happened to, I went to Ryerson for my undergrad, and I went to the University of Toronto for my master's degree,
Okay.
where I also, completed this internship process as a part of that. And then I just, went out into the world and did my thing, started working at Diabetes Canada.
Right.
It used to be called the Canadian Diabetes Association. And yeah, I just went from there. And then that, I'm sure we'll get to the fun stuff, but that meandered into kind of my own thing.
You worked at the University Health Network as well, right?
I trained there
Okay.
at Toronto Western and the family health team, and I used to volunteer there when I was younger as well.
Right.
At Toronto General, so I have spent some time at UHN as well. Yeah.
So how many years have you been in RD?
The degree on my wall says 2014, so
Okay.
yeah, that's whatever that is, 6 + 1.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I guess the one obvious question that's been on my mind the last hour before you came here is there's an abundance of nutritional information out there.
Yeah.
There's diet fads, there's diets that work. By definition, I was curious to see what the definition of diet, what a diet is, and I think it's like what you eat habitually is what it is by definition, right?
Right. And it's one of those things, it's a funny word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it has multiple meanings, and you could take 10 competent people and they would define it probably all differently.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, when I think of diet, even myself, I think there's a dichotomy. There's kind of like, it's like you have the angel and the devil type of thing. The good definition, which is like your pattern of consumption.
Okay.
And the negative definition, which is, a restrictive framework of some kind.
Right.
You know what I mean? And arguably they don't mean different things per se, but it's how you frame things actually in the world, in life, and also in the world of nutrition. And it was massively important.
It's true. Yeah.
You know
Perspective is everything. I think as much as we like diets, like this book right there. By the way, guys, one thing I forgot to mention is Andy is a published author.
I am, fortunately enough.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you bring any of your books? Or?
I did actually. They're in a bag. I'll give them to you after I brought you a couple.
Awesome. Yeah. So being a published author, and going back to the original question I was thinking about is, what's your biggest, what are your core nutritional values? What are your not necessarily like your belief system or your top tips when it comes to nutrition?
That
be a little loaded question.
That is a loaded question, but I'll break it down. I think first and foremost, I think I put the individual that I'm working with first, and so meeting people where they're at. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that's number one. So it's not for me to tell someone what to do. It's for me to understand where someone's at versus where they want to be, and what they're willing to do, and what they're willing to change to get there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So definitely, in my world, we call that client-centered practice and things like that, right? So you definitely have to put the individual's interests and needs and wants and all of that stuff first, right? And then in doing that, you're going to be adaptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like to pride myself on helping people, where they're at, and letting them almost tell me how they want to get to where they want to be.
Right.
Obviously, I have the knowledge, I have the experience, but they know, what works for them, how their mind works on some level. So I try and respect that as much as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one thing right off the bat, right? So I
right.
would include that in my philosophy. The other thing is, I'm very big on. I'm much more interested, and this is not the first time I've said this. I'm much more interested in what you do eat and what you will eat, rather than what you won't or what you shouldn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that comes back to that framing question. So I don't want to give you a list of things you're not going to do. Right. I'm going to tell you, here's the things I want you to do. Let's chip away at this. And the more time you spend doing this stuff that's going to help you, probably some of the other stuff, which is perhaps less helpful.
Yeah.
It might drop in the background a little bit. It might not, but you don't achieve health by what you don't do. Mm-hmm. For the most part, you achieve health by what you do when it comes to food.
Yeah.
Right. There's certain key food groups and key foods that are in my view and in science's view, fundamental for good health.
Yeah. Do you remember like when we were younger? I think in the 90s there used to be the Canada Health Food Guide.
Yeah.
And there was it wasn't a pyramid. It was like
So
it was like a
rainbow is the
rainbow.
most recent
It was a
one.
rainbow.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I have it pulled out.
Yeah, pull it up.
It was interesting because like at the biggest rainbow,
No.
the biggest part of the rainbow was carbs. So they were mentioning like your pastas, your bread and whatnot, and then they went down to vegetables, which was the green range, and then you got your cheese and dairy products, which is the blue,
Right.
and then the red was meat and alternatives.
Right.
And it's crazy to see how times have changed, and it's kind of evolved, like you said, it was client centric, but I think more and more people are like the keto diet, for example,
Sure.
which was really popular, I think, in 2019. Still kind of
Still
is.
is. Still is. I've written on that. I've discussed that. It's fun to make light of as well from the nutrition
it?
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
I by the way, I love your soccer, the soccer.
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
It's low hanging fruit, the keto diet, in my profession to crack jokes about. But I also speak about it. You know, I use humor as a tool, but I also speak about topics honestly. And I think,
Of
you know,
course.
the keto diet, I think, you know, look, it would definitely fit on that restrictive side of things. But, you know, I respect the fact that some people find a home with that style of eating and perhaps they find their best health with it. I don't go willy-nilly advocating it, prescribing it, because it does restrict a lot of foods.
Right.
And I don't believe, and science doesn't tell me that you need to do that to be healthy, right? But just like anything else, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work for somebody.
Right.
You know?
Right. As long as it's something that you can sustain over a long period of time. You know, fundamentally, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the ketogenic diet essentially is a high-fat diet and a high-protein diet with almost absolutely no carbs, or low 5%, I think, of your caloric intake.
Yeah, you would say high fat, moderate protein, very, very low carb.
Right.
Yeah, and the 5% number gets bandied about, you know, like around there, 5 to 10%, depending on a couple of different factors.
Right. What's your biggest beef with it? No pun intended, but
Yeah. I've used that one myself. I mean, look, so you made an interesting point, right? You
Yeah.
said the most important thing is that you can sustain it. And okay, fair enough, that's true. But I mean, there's a caveat to that you need to sustain it, you know, with a minimal burden on your mental health as well. Right. So I'm interested in that you can keep up doing something, but that you actually enjoy it and you're not making a number of sacrifices to your personal life and to your happiness in order to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not even speaking to the fact that many important foods are excluded from the ketogenic diet, right? Legumes, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, things like that, very healthy foods, right?
And they're not included. They're excluded, right?
By definition, you cannot really include them in any meaningful way because your carbohydrate intake will shoot up too high.
Right.
So not explicitly excluded, but for all intents and purposes, they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Why did it get so popular? Is it because I think I know Joe Rogan had, I think it was Mark Sison? Mark Sison, I think he was on their podcast. Why do you like? What's the story behind that? Do you know? Or?
Well, look, let's be honest, right? So let's look at the foods that the ketogenic diet excludes. Okay, that are actually quite healthy, nutritionally dense, right? We can say legumes, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans. We can say fruit, right? We can say starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes, whole grains like quinoa. Okay, this is the reality. I mean, these are not characteristics of most people's diets, right? So in that context, sure, like, you know, if you don't have carbohydrates, when very often carbohydrates end up being, you know, refined stuff, this and that, you know, it's not unreasonable to expect someone's going to get rid of those foods and see some level of improved quality of life and feel good and all of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And also you have to realize that a keto diet can be done multiple different ways. You know, and I wrote this almost to the T in my blog post. You know, you can eat kale and salmon and avocado and do a keto diet, or you can have sausage and like cheese all day. Right. And those are both ketogenic diets theoretically, but they couldn't be more different, right? So it's a very broad term, right? So you can't make it's hard to make general claims about it.
It's like you can have like, you know, half a rack of bacon and still be like, well, I'm on a ketogenic diet, but what's that going to do to your cholesterol and whatnot, right?
I mean, a lot of that would depend on what else you did, right?
Yeah,
so it's tough. I mean, you know, like someone like you know, okay, Joe Rogan. I mean, you know, he's more in line with the first thing I just said. He's going to be eating a lot of vegetables, a lot of other stuff, and that's he's like, yeah, okay, he's not eating. If he's doing keto, he's not eating a ton of carbs, but what he has access to is not what the normal person has access to, food wise, right? So it's you know, and again, like there are people, like I said, like I don't take anything away from the fact that, someone like himself or whoever else is, eating a lot of important and healthy foods and feeling good in that way.
Yeah.
But, it's tough. It's tough when you have to cut out so many important food groups.
What's your diet like, man? What do you eat? I know you're a big fan of kale.
Kale, yes, I love kale. I eat kale almost every day.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite foods, and it's turned into like a pseudo identity brand thing for my business and social media.
KALELUJAH.
Yeah, I just made that. I just put that together the other day. I saw that you had reposted that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's good to it's good to educate,
right?
And it's also important to be do it with humor, but also do it with the fact that you can relate with people,
right?
Because that's what captures people's attention.
Right.
Like the soccer ones, I'm loving it, man. More of that.
No, I know. I mean, soccer. I'm a soccer player, soccer fan, and it came to me. And I'm fortunate enough I have social to express my creativity. But everything I do is paired with education. I rarely just crack a joke just to entertain myself. I actually almost always pair it with some nutrition messaging.
Right.
So to your point about my diet, well, funny enough, I'm almost 1 year. I'm dabbling in pescatarianism, actually.
Really?
So I've been a pescatarian for a year. Okay. I mean, if you ask me honestly why I decided to do it, I don't really know. I just decided on a whim to give it a shot.
Okay.
And that's not to say I've had plenty of chicken and beef in my life, right? So it's nothing that I've been raised this way. It's a year of all the years I've been around. But yeah, I'm 1 year pescatarian. So
congratulations, man. Pescatarian is fish only.
Yeah, so pescatarian, you can eat fish, you eat eggs, and for protein, tofu, tempeh, lentils. That's a pretty good characterization of what I eat for protein.
Right.
Get my kale in, love my carbs, my quinoa, my bread, my sweet potatoes. Just it's somewhat cliche, but that's a lot of what I like to eat.
Yeah, you're one step closer to being a vegan, right? Just gotta eliminate.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have a lot of clients who are newly new members, let's say, of the vegan vegetarian club, and I love working with people who are trying to navigate that world. It's a noble endeavor. For me, I don't see myself ever becoming a vegan vegetarian. But,
Right.
But there's more vegan vegetarians today than ever before.
Of course,
people are more aware of the ethical, environmental considerations, and again, I'm not anti anything, right? Again, I'm pescatarian for 1 year. I have a lot of clients who are omnivores. I have many clients who are vegans. There's no. I don't.
Well, the guest before you was my best friend. He's a vegan. He's been a vegan for the last 4 years.
Right.
And I think you're absolutely right, man. I think it's a couple things. It's a lifestyle choice.
Right.
And does it make you happy?
100%. I agree with that second part.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I did the keto diet for about 6 months, and I realized I lost a tremendous amount of weight, but it wasn't healthy. I felt like I was trying too hard. It wasn't like an organic fit in my day-to-day activity, right?
Yeah.
Before being a pescatarian, what was your diet like? What was your are you, when it comes to your clients, are you very specific with when it comes to the framework of calorie intake versus the macronutrient split between proteins, carbs? How widely does that differ? Let's say our client is someone that's looking to lose weight, because we did receive a lot of questions from a lot of people that are people looking to lose weight this year.
Sure.
Of course, I'm going to include Andy's handle, and they can reach out to you directly. But what's your general perspective when it comes to weight loss?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a big one as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So first of all, let me answer. I'll break it down. The first question you asked is as relates to calorie totals and macros and stuff like that. I mean, look, my philosophy is this: I want to offer the most minimally invasive solution to my clients possible. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm also while respecting what they want to get out of the process. So if they want to discuss, targets for their protein intake, caloric targets, if they happen to be doing those things, tracking their intake. We can break that down. We can talk the science. We can talk the numbers. Absolutely. Right. But I'm not going to bend over backwards to bring that up, because that also entails a level of, attentiveness or even hyper attention to what you're doing that could be detrimental for some people, because, you have to really focus on things you might not otherwise have to. So, I would sooner have someone get to where they want to be, like I said, with burdening them as little as possible. Because you go back to the question about my philosophy, I would put that as a pillar as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want food to come naturally to people. Right. I'm in a privileged position because this is my career. So the level to which it comes naturally to me is not always going to be the case for others. But I try and bring that to them, because I understand, because I haven't always been the way I am. and having the ease that I have with food now. I've had a lot of struggles in my past, so I understand the difference in quality of life when you can get to that point.
Were you ever like an obese kid, or how was your childhood?
I like childhood was fine. I was.
You look mad healthy right now, of course, because given the fact that you're
Yeah.
healthy. But were you always like this, or?
Honestly, I was very underweight, when I was growing up, and I to the point I was quite sick even in my first year of university.
Okay.
And so I was, like I remember in first year university, I had stomach issues, and I even mentioned on social media today how I dealt with acid reflux and some digestive issues. And yeah, I mean, I had a lot of issues like that in my younger years, and it's because I wasn't really in tune with, with eating well.
Right.
And I had to kind of arrive at it by myself. You know what I mean? Oh, my parents are awesome. They just like they weren't in tune with it either, and through no fault of their own.
Right.
They weren't like raised to be concerned about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. So they raised me to be a good person, just not someone who cared that much about fruits and vegetables. So I learned that myself, and part of the reason why I became a dietitian is because the quality of life improvements I enjoyed were just so vast that there was just no way I was going to do any other career besides working with people to help them make the most out of their food and nutrition
and what they consume. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Did you when you're in university? Did you know before university that you wanted to be a dietitian, or is that something you discovered in high school? Or
it's a good question. It's interesting because grade 12 I was starting to care more about nutrition. Okay, but I was. I had good grades, and so in my head, I went to U of T and then to Ryerson because I had to switch to a different undergrad to become a dietitian.
Right.
But I think U of T, I went to sciences, and maybe in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll be a doctor. But U of T kind of destroyed me. I got very sick in my first year, and then it kind of decided for me that something else I was like going to do something else, and nutrition quickly emerged, and then I was never looking back. So from 17, 18. I was never going to be doing anything else. Even to this day, there's nothing else I could be doing.
Have there been any radical shifts in the way you view nutrition when you were beginning this journey to where you are today? Are there any taboos or anything fads that we generally think is a stereotype that, like, for example, carbs? Like, what's your perspective and relationship with carb intake?
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, I mean, I love carbohydrates. There's no question. I mean, some of my, many.
I don't feel so guilty now because I have pasta.
Right, but this is it. See, let's pause on that for a second. If you want to know, honestly, the one thing that's changed about me is I'm more and more in tune and intimately aware of the struggles that people have, as it relates to how they feel about food, how they think about food. Right. So that's the one thing that's changed. I'm like becoming hypersensitive to that, and I can sense more and more when people have had like a bit of a rough ride in terms of, even like, being scared of carbohydrates or things like that. And part of this is because the popularity of these keto diets, at least partially, compel them to believe that this is how they have to eat to be healthy. Right. And part of my goal, my messaging, and my practice philosophy is to help you understand that, if you really want to, we can do it in the healthiest way possible. Cool. But you don't need to do that to be, healthy and happy. Right. That is most important. Maybe that type of messaging and the more people you work with, you can't help but notice this. They're people's journeys and, their pain on some level. Right. And I'm intimately aware of that as the more people I work with. And so again, like I'm even more and more sensitive about that. That's the one thing that's probably changed me the most, working with more and more people. And other than that, I refine my approach to food and my understanding of science as I go. Right. But that's probably the most meaningful thing that's changed in me. Right.
And then just continuing to be an expert in your field. Yeah, I get that. I think that as I'm talking to you, I'm kind of getting this idea that your relationship with food is very important.
100%.
And respecting what you consume and what you put in your body, and truly understanding what it is you're putting in your body. Like, for example, sugar. When I was in university, Red Bulls, rock stars, all that, right? And now I think for the good part, like I don't really consume as much sugar as I used to, which I think is a good thing. Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's another funny question to bring up. I mean, I interned at a place called the Canadian Sugar Institute.
Okay.
So if you had asked me this question before I started there, I would have been this classic nutrition kid, like, oh, sugar's this, sugar's that. The reality is, it's like I'm not gonna tell you that having a drink that's pure sugar is like some nutritious, boon for you. Like, I'm not going to say that, right? But it doesn't mean, but that said, it's like, for certain, these foods do serve a role, right? They bring some level of enjoyment, whatever the case may be. So, sugar in itself, look, a bunch of sugar in something is not adding much to you nutritionally. However, in the broader context of a solid style of eating, it's a negligible effect on your overall health.
Right.
So if you take something that's quite healthy for you, let's say arguably whether it's a high fiber cereal or yogurt or anything else, and you put some sugar in it, just to make it taste palatable, is that, if you go online, you might read that that's bad. I disagree. I mean, I just disagree completely.
Right. I think that's the key, going online. Don't
I
do
make
that.
light of that all. Yeah, no, I mean, if you take a deep dive into some of my posts, and I encourage people to do that, I constantly reference, even my soccer posts. You had the goalkeeper, you had the header coming in, ball's coming in. This is what you read online. The goalkeeper is your dietitian swatting it away in like some dramatic fashion, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly it.
So true.
You know what I mean?
So true. I think on that question when I asked you about your journey, now you've published 3 books.
7 now.
7.
If it says my website needs to probably be updated.
It says 3. Yeah.
That's my that's one thing I got to do in the new year.
So 7. When did you write your first book, and how did you get to that point? Like, because writing a book is a goal of mine in life.
Yeah.
And so I think, and you accomplished it, man. You accomplished it 7 times.
It's cool. Yeah. I mean, well, these days, I mean, honestly, you can write a book tomorrow if you want. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I encourage you to do that.
Especially in this pandemic with all the time we have. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Time is, of course, the limiting factor. Yeah. I mean, honestly, writing is massive for me, right? Like, writing and humor are 2 things I just love, and I love to combine them. But yeah, I've always like enjoyed writing, and I started writing when I started to try and jump into the business game. I didn't have a big business sense in my head. I was kind of, I'm going to write a bunch of blogs, and I'm going to hope that this leads to opportunities for me.
Okay.
It wasn't well thought out. It was kind of just like, I'm going to put the work out there. Because I know I want to write a book, and I know I want to be known for giving good information. That was my plan, and fortunately it did work out just that way. The opportunities came to me. A couple of years in, I got offered to write a book. We had a good time. A publisher liked me, and they kept on giving me books.
Right. So someone approached you, or did
exactly?
Okay.
Yeah, someone approached
Publisher approached you and said, "Hey, okay, gotcha."
Yeah.
And what was the name of the first book?
The first book is on. This is a funny joke. So I have 7 books. The problem is like the names are a little bit like not convoluted. They're a little bit complicated. It's like the 30-minute. They're all like they're overly extended because the publisher comes up with them because they're all metric based for target audience. It was on the DASH diet. That's all you need to know.
Okay.
My first book and my 7th book were both on the DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. Okay. Hypertension being high blood pressure, essentially.
Right.
So that was my first book. It was on the DASH diet. I wrote it with I co-wrote it with a lovely lady who's also a dietitian from Wisconsin, who I met at a conference shortly after.
Okay.
Julie. So shout out to Julie. She probably won't listen to this, but she just had a baby, so I don't blame her.
Congratulations.
Congrats, Julie. Yeah, she's awesome. I love Julie. Julie Andrews from Wisconsin.
Okay. So that was book number 1.
That was book number 1 about 2 years ago.
And what about your most recent book? When did you?
That just came out.
So that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So within 2 years, you did 7. That's a massive accomplishment, man.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's cool for sure. I'm proud of it. I can't complain. I'm fortunate enough to do that.
Yeah, Andy's too humble for us.
It's what it is. Yeah, I am. I try and be. I mean, it's all. I'm not. I'm proud of myself.
What's book number 7? What's that? What was that about?
The book number 7 is also on the DASH diet, but the books in between is where it varies. Like I wrote a low cholesterol cookbook. I wrote an acid reflux cookbook, and my post today was on acid reflux actually. Yeah. I wrote a book on intermittent fasting. I wrote a book on low sodium. I wrote a book on pescatarianism actually.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Funny enough.
Was this before you chose?
It was before. Okay. I think honestly that was probably that's probably the reason why I ended up trying to dabble in pescatarianism after writing that book. Right. You know what I mean? So these are the topics I've written so far. I've got a heart health cookbook coming out next year, and we'll see what comes after that.
That's awesome, man. You mentioned intermittent fasting. That's something I regularly do.
Right.
Do like a 16-8 window. What's like in quick summary? What's your perspective on? Does it work? Does it not work? Do you recommend it to your clients?
Right.
Do you do it yourself?
So fasting is one thing, one of the more cliche things that I actually am a proponent of insofar as that I do it. I dabble in it, and I've written a book on it. Yeah. Right. So obviously I have like a vested, interest in it on some level. Where I kind of draw the line though is I try and avoid like a more dogmatic or like gimmicky viewpoint where, some people get caught up in the idea they have to start and stop at this time. Okay. Right. But really it's just the amount of time that you're going, not the starting and stopping time, which, so you get kind of caught up in all stuff like that. You know what I mean? But
You download those apps. It's like, fuck, yo, it's 12 o'clock. I got to go eat.
Right. Like that's, I think that at that point it kind of detracts a
Yeah.
little bit.
It does, yeah.
But fasting is one of those things. I think if my professional viewpoint on it is a couple of things. First of all, for the right person, I think it could enhance someone's quality of life in terms of like, it's a different framework. It's a different way to structure your day.
Right.
Right. I mean, when I used to work 9 to 5, I used to wake up super early, make breakfast. Like I was losing all the sleep. I was exhausted. And then like when I kind of let that go, I'm like, it's okay if I, don't eat right away. And it's okay if I eat a little bit later in the day and stuff like that.
Right.
Now that doesn't make me super healthy or doesn't make me better than anyone else. But if that framework adds to my day, adds to my quality of life, makes my life simpler, you don't have to call it fasting. You know what I mean? Fasting is the name that has been bestowed upon intermittent fasting at this term. But, my thing is for the right person, it can add to their quality of life. And then beyond that, this is where you get into the science, right?
Right.
And yeah, it's an emerging area of study.
It is, yeah.
It's not like definitive that, fasting is going to, do all these amazing things for you, but there's something there.
Right.
There's something there in terms of how it affects your metabolism, how it affects your energy metabolism, how it affects some of your cells. But we need more research before we can make those claims.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I think a lot of times people jump into fasting.
Right.
But with it comes to, well, what are you eating when you are eating within that 8 hour window?
I was going to get to that. Yeah.
And are you exercising? Like, fasted cardio is a big thing in the morning, first thing you get up.
Right.
I think that's kind of worked for me. Again,
that's the most important thing if it works for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wrote an article on my website on fasted exercise, and there is a little something there. You know what I mean? But you got to realize it's like, what is the exercise? Like that's always going to be the fundamental thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so fasting is like, what I say is the expression I've been using is like, you have a nice birthday cake, the icing's already on it. Fasting is like the writing with your name. So you can enjoy the cake without the writing, without your name written on it. But for some people, it gives them that little extra something, that little extra framework that gives them that little bit of a boost.
I see.
You know what I mean? But you're right. What you said earlier is what you eat is always going to be much more important than whether or not you fast.
Yeah.
Although for the right person, like I said, fasting is actually very useful. What you eat is always more important. So I'm much more concerned that you eat certain foods, you get your nutrients in, than whether or not you fast. But hey, if you want to do both, that makes you happy, cool. Equally so, if you're listening to this and you think you have to fast to be healthy, you don't. But if you do, cool. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we can make it work and not detract. It has to add. These things have to add to your life, not detract.
Yeah.
Right, in terms of how you enjoy it.
Especially like this reminds me. There was a period of my lifetime where I downloaded MyFitnessPal.
Sure.
And it became a point where like I would literally, scan a barcode, input everything. It helped a little bit because it kind of gauged me and I realized some of the bullshit that I'm consuming.
Right.
Like little things like, a muffin. And I'm like, damn, 250 calories. I never would have thought that before.
Right.
So it was a good recalibration exercise. But sometimes we get so caught up in these numbers.
Yep.
And a little bit too caught up that we get like exhausted.
Yep.
And what starts out as a great journey is kind of it's kind of short circuited and it's short lived, and you start back to where you started. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck in that cycle.
That's why I'm hyper aware of that, right? Like that's what I said. Like I really try and not add more layers than people need, because you're right, that can absolutely happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's insightful, to people find using those applications on occasion insightful, so they can get an understanding of the relative contributions of different foods to their pattern, actually understand what they do in 7 days.
Right.
It's not easy to know what 7 days in your life actually looks like as it relates to your food choices.
Right.
So I see the value from that perspective. Again, it can be burdensome, and I think there are a lot of people who feel they need to do it and for whom it detracts from their quality of life. And, that makes me sad on some level.
Yeah.
But there's equally so people do it and they enjoy it and it's not a second thought to them. And I respect that, it's fine. That's why my first pillar was literally, it's the client first and their interest first. But sometimes there's a blurred line between there where it seems like it's one thing, but it's the other.
Right.
It's complicated, man. Like nutrition is the most complicated.
Really
I use this one. It's the most complicated, simple subject. You know what I mean?
We think it's simple. Like a lot of times we're like, oh man, you lost a lot of weight, dude. Like what works for you? But it might not work for me, to be honest.
100%.
Segueing a little bit, shifting gears a little bit. So, with every guest, I do something called a speed round.
Yeah.
It's called the sunshine round.
Yeah, okay. Sweet.
So it's a series of questions, quick questions. You try to answer them as quick as you possibly can.
Got it. I'm ready.
usually I'll give you. I mean, I usually give my guests a shot, but we'll do that after.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good.
Try to answer them as quick as you possibly can. Let me just pull these out. 1 second. What's your favorite vegetable?
Kale.
Okay, obvious.
No.
If you're stuck in an island and you could listen to one album for the rest of your life, what album would it be?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to go with Linkin Park, maybe Meteora or Hybrid Theory.
My guy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Favorite restaurant in Toronto?
Mezzanotte at Yonge and near North York Center Station.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been there. What kind of cuisine is
Italian.
it? Italian?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Look, Gambit's my favorite X-Men. I mean, like throwing cards is just random.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tough one. Reading minds is hard to turn down.
Yeah. I feel like Gambit's been underrated. He didn't get enough attention that he should have gotten.
No. I was looking forward to the movie, which I hope will be rebooted.
Is that still happening? Because I've been hearing it since the age of 18.
As far as I know, it's kind of on the rocks right now.
Right.
But no, I mean, you'll see. I got some Gambit related art coming to my page soon, so you'll see. He might be throwing cards. He might be throwing something else. You could probably guess what it's going to be.
Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay, would you rather win 50 grand or let your best friend win 500,000? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I would let my best friend win 500,000. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Would you
Would
rather
benefit me too, probably? So.
I hope so, man.
Yeah, exactly right.
Would you rather run at 100? Meanwhile, your best friend's like, yeah, no chance. Would you rather run at 100 miles per hour or fly at 10 miles per hour?
I play soccer, so I'll take the speed on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather continue with your life as it is today or restart it?
Damn.
These are some deep questions.
You know what? I'm gonna. It is tempting. It's tempting to say restart it because I had some issues, health issues when I was younger. But I'm gonna stick with it today because butterfly effect or whatever that thing is. Where you change one thing, you don't know all the other stuff that's gonna change.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to give up my experiences. So yeah.
I'm a big believer of that.
Yeah.
Like you are the person you are today because of everything you've been
Right.
through, right? If you weren't a nutritionist today,
Right.
what career do you think you'd be in outside of health and fitness?
I mean, I'd love to be a pro soccer player, but that would have been realistic for me.
Right.
I mean, I think if a few things went differently, I probably could have ended up becoming. I probably would have ended up becoming a doctor. Yeah.
Okay.
If a few things went differently. Yeah.
Right. Would you? What's your favorite hobby outside of playing soccer?
Outside of playing soccer and assuming watching TV while eating kale is not a hobby. Honestly, I don't know, like writing, making these memes and jokes that I do. But if it's not profession related at all, I gotta say probably playing FIFA on the PlayStation. Realistically,
Right.
Yeah. Probably that.
What do you have PlayStation 4?
PlayStation 4, yeah.
Nice,
I'm not
nice,
cool
nice.
enough for PlayStation 5 yet.
I have an extra PS5 that I'm selling if you need it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Honestly,
we'll talk about it
Yeah, sure.
Next question. Okay, so if you could move to any country in the world, which country would you move to?
It would probably have to be. I have to say London, England. Just because I'm a big soccer fanatic. London has so many big soccer clubs.
Right.
I've been there previously. It was like one of the best weeks of my life. So I have to say London.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
What advice would you give the younger version of you 10 years ago?
Oh, there's too much to even list.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had one piece of advice,
yeah.
I mean, start earlier. Like all the things I'm doing now are what I should be doing, but I think I think I got around to them a bit too late. I think not too late, but later than I could have.
On that note, diving into this specific topic, like it's interesting because I ask myself this all the time. I'm like, what could I have done differently?
Right.
And trust me, my list is just as long as yours.
Right.
There's so many things in life that we could have, should have, done, would have, right? It's an opportunity now where it's like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to repeat, the lost opportunity. So that 10 years from now, I'm like, what would I have told 31-year-old Sonny?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, when it comes to achieving your goals, what are some of your biggest tips or what's worked for you, I guess? Even specific to 2020, I know we've navigated through 2020. There's been universal circumstances, but, has there been silver linings for you?
There have been silver linings that come up all the time. I mean, I think the biggest one for me is or that always surprises me is all the things you thought you needed
Yeah.
that you can live without. Even something as simple as like getting a haircut every month. You know what I mean? I've had like 2 haircuts this year, or 3, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Damn, I don't look that bad with long hair. You know, that's a silver lining.
Dude, I hear you, man. I usually get a fade twice a month at the fitting room on Dundas West.
There you go.
And now it's like, since the shutdown, I'm like, all right, you know what? It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, that's like a
I save myself $120 a month.
exactly right. I mean, that's kind of a silly one, but I mean, like
yeah.
the thing is, it's funny because on the spot, it's like thinking of silver linings. There've been a number, but it's like I can't. I think definitely I'm taking things to the next level as well in terms of like, you know, what I do, you know, on with my business related stuff. I think I had a chance to kind of like step away and realize like what I need to do differently. And I've met some people just online who have actually directed me, who I may not have encountered otherwise. So there's all sorts of fun like that. I learned some of my own, you know, you learn about your own like, personal deficiencies and you try and like, you know, rectify those,
Right.
you know, maybe things that you might not have otherwise been aware of, or you might have gotten away with longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I'm a bit like, for example, like, not to get into too deep, but I think like I'm probably a little bit more selfish than I could be. And like I was made aware of that through some circumstances. I always knew about it. But that's something I'm really trying to be more like be aware of going forward.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all relative, like how selfish I am. There might be many more people who are more, but if I'm being critical of myself, I definitely think about that.
Yeah, I think that's an important one. And I think that, you know, this pandemic, this lockdown specifically gave us an opportunity to kind of, all right, you know, we're given these are the circumstances.
Right.
What am I going to do with it?
Right.
How am I going to deal with it? You know, for me personally, man, like there's been so many silver linings. Like,
good. Awesome.
You know, I've grown in so many ways. This podcast has grown, still kept it going. I think the thing right now into 2021, there's, you know, I mentioned in my last podcast, the reset year.
Right.
It's a chance for us to reset. What are you looking forward to the most this year?
You know, I think
anything happening?
I think that depends on how things go. Like, for example, you know, the European Soccer Championships were supposed to be last summer. I was supposed to go. That was going to be one of the biggest things I've ever done in my life. But
Right.
of course, it got canceled. So are they going to happen this summer? It's tight because they would happen in June. Is the world going to be okay by then?
Yeah.
Probably not. So then I have a conference in October in New Orleans, professional conference that
Right.
would be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Is the world going to be okay by then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, like, I love what I do. Like, I'm in a fortunate position, like, you know, being on social, you know, writing, sharing information, bringing some joy through humor, talking to clients, helping people like live healthier lives. Like, I like what I do so much, and that's probably one of the things I would tell anyone. Like, you know, when you like what you do, you know, really the cliche doesn't feel like work. I mean, like, yeah, it's 100% true. There's never few truer statements, I think, than that.
It's so true. It's so
You
true.
know?
Like it's one thing to work a 9 to 5 and you know, get paid for a job, which is fine. But there's another thing to do something that you really, truly have a passion for.
Right.
Right. Because then it's on your mind 24/7. It's something that you don't get up in the morning and you don't like, it doesn't drain you. Right.
That's exactly it. Like, I've woken up Monday or I've been on Sunday and like had that feeling like it's Monday. Like, I don't have that, you know what I mean, anymore, fortunately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not like you're reluctant. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, I feel a little better drinking this Guinness now because you mentioned that you were still recovering from New Year's.
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker. Let me just go and say that, right? I'm not a big drinker, and I have like a sensitive stomach. Like, I kind of like to said I had some stomach issues, so for me, I can't get away with a lot.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What's your perception of like alcohol? I think that's a big thing for the city. Toronto is such a, you know, I know things have been quiet in the city, no King Street and all that, but you know, drinking and going out, it's a big thing. And I think one of the questions we got actually was alcohol consumption.
Right.
Usually around this time, the January effect rolls in where everyone's like, I'm going 30 days sober.
Right.
And which is great. And then February rolls around and they just make up for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, alcohol is one of those things, you know, it's like, there's two sides of it. There's the professional dietitian side where it's like, listen, like, you know, having too many drinks on a weekly basis is not in the best interest of your health. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it, right?
Right.
So if you're having, let's say, I don't know, if we put the magic number at, I mean, if it's between 7 to 14 drinks a week, let's just say, you know, if you're in that range, that's okay. If you can get less than 7, cool. If you're at more than 14 and consistently, that might be increasing your risk of certain negative health outcomes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Certain types of cancer and stuff like that. Not to be grim or anything. This is just the objective reality of it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also on a humane side. I do appreciate that, you know, alcohol plays an important role for people in their social lives and stuff like that. And, you know, you have to try and strike a balance between those two things.
It's great now because like there's options out there where there's like, you know, zero sugar.
Yeah.
And like White Claws. I think that was a popular one during the summer.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, man. I think with alcohol, it's all about balance. Like for me, I think I realized that it slows my metabolism a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't really consume alcohol like I used to
Right.
in my 20s, for a number of reasons. One of them being like, if I have 2 beers, man, I feel like I got hit. It feels like I got hit by a truck too, right?
Yeah.
So Andy, like outside of, I guess, where did you grow up? Like,
Honestly, Young and Finch.
oh,
You know?
okay.
Yeah, Young and Finch.
Toronto,
I'm a Toronto boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that area between Young and Finch and Young and Shepherd. Like a lot of memories there. I'm extending probably a little bit further north. My closest friend.
Is your family still at Young and Finch, or?
Not now. They're a little bit more down, a little more midtown.
Right.
But that area for me is so nostalgic. I could walk up and down there and like recount my childhood. So I love it there.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Yeah,
area
because
to
I know
see.
we've been talking a lot about diets and nutrition and stuff, but I want to get to know you too, man. Like I want to get to know Andy DeSantis. So you grew up in Toronto. What's the last place you traveled?
Last place I traveled was actually London.
Okay.
Well, no, I've probably been to New York a few times pre-pandemic before that, but London was
Across waters, yeah.
the most. Yeah, London was the most probably special place I've been. Just like for so many.
Was this your first time?
It was my second time ever in Europe, my first in England.
Okay.
But like just for so many reasons, like like I'm a massive soccer fan. A massive soccer fan. Like soccer's a massive. If you want to get to know me, like soccer's fundamental. And the thing about soccer, just to tie into my career, is like because you speak with people right from all different parts of the world. And because if you're intimately aware about soccer, you understand what different last names from what countries they are, from national teams. Oh, and you automatically know where people are from. You can talk. Soccer connects you in so many different ways to different people.
Right.
And so it's just like a gift personally, but it's also quite a nice little gift professionally as well.
Yeah, it's a fun sport to watch for me to watch.
Right.
I'm sure for you to play. What's your favorite team?
Honestly, I'm a massive fan. I will watch anything. I don't live or die with one team. When I was growing up, I loved AC Milan, like when they were really, really good. They had like Pirlo and Zaghi and Shevchenko and Kaká and like these top players. They were like the best team in Europe. But since then, I just love the sport. I love watching it. So
is there any specific league that you like to watch, or
these days? Look, the Premier League is the top league. Yeah. It's where all the best players are. When I was growing up, Serie. I still watch Serie A. I am Italian. I still watch Serie A, which is the Italian league. No, Premier League, it's tough, man. They have all the best players.
Yeah.
And it's the tightest league, and even the decent teams have international level players. So
my girlfriend's a huge fan of soccer. She plays soccer as well.
Awesome.
So
love that.
This is a year where I'm trying to increase my acumen a little bit.
Hit me up anytime. We'll chat soccer.
I had a Chelsea jersey, but I didn't realize that it could backfire a little bit as well, depending on who you're a fan of. Right?
Sure. Yeah. Chelsea has some rivalries, but not as steep as some other teams, so you can get away with that.
On the topic of traveling, have you seen all these people going to Tulum?
No.
Mexico?
I haven't seen that.
I feel like everybody in Toronto right now is in Tulum, Mexico.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Loose quarantine
very,
laws?
Very loose quarantine. I feel like every time I'm on Instagram, like half of my feed is of people getting on a plane going to Mexico.
Interesting.
So it's going to be interesting because I think the new rules now, as of January 7th, you have to have a negative test.
I saw that. Yep.
Prior to getting on the flight.
Yeah. Well,
which will be interesting.
Yeah, I saw like the airline industry was upset. It's tough. Like, it seems like from the perspective of stopping the spread, it seems like a reasonable course of action.
Yeah.
It doesn't look. I'm not here to judge them. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do to travel right now.
Oh yeah.
Look, people have a lot of different perspectives and all that. It's what it is. Like, I'm not a infectious disease expert. So.
Has the COVID fatigue like hit you yet? Like, how do you feel about this pandemic on a more of a on a mental health basis, I say, like how are you doing?
Yeah, look, it's taken different types of tolls on my life, but at the end of the day, like all I can say is like my main thing, I can't complain. I can't. Things are all right. I'm doing my thing.
Love that.
So yeah, I could sit here and there's certain things which are like I wouldn't even bring up, but there's some things that have happened that changed my life trajectory in ways I didn't think would happen.
Yeah.
But like I'm happy. I'm here. I'm doing my thing. I love what I do, and I'm just like, just chugging along, and I'm here talking to you. So honestly, it's all good.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing. We got to just keep moving and leveling up, right?
Yeah.
There's an analogy that I use this is like last year. I had a guest here, Jess Tucker, and we were talking about. He brought up this metaphor, this idea of an iPhone charger.
Okay.
What's the first thing that you do when you lose your phone battery? When your phone battery's dead.
Right.
you charge your phone.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if you have that same level of enthusiasm and anxiousness towards your own life, where you realize shit's not going well and, you know, things aren't right now, I need to do something, you just got to charge yourself.
Right.
And that could mean changing up your environment. That could mean changing up the people that surround you. That could mean picking up a new hobby.
Yep.
I don't know if you see those customized doormats on the.
Oh, sweet.
So I actually started that venture with my girlfriend last month.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So he customized doormats, whatever you want on the doormat. We put it on there, right? We're like,
to look into that.
yeah, let me know. It's like, it was like, you know, we're at home. I'm working from home. What can we do more?
Yeah.
This idea of doing more, because you're only really given one shot in life.
Right.
One opportunity to do whatever it is you need to do. You never want to be in a situation where it's like, you know, it's you're at the end of your life and you're like, fuck, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. It's now or never.
Yeah,
and you know, this pandemic, however long it's going to get extended, that doesn't mean that you got to put your life on pause.
Right. No, I agree. I'm trying to step up as well in the new year and do more and just bring more joy and education, help more people. So yeah, I feel that. That's awesome.
Do you have any pets or?
I don't. I mean, I love dogs. I see myself getting a dog in the future, and I'm gonna see how my life is gonna shake out in terms of like working from home versus being in the office.
Right.
Because I was in my office like 6 days a week before, so it wasn't really. In the situation I was in, it wasn't really right to have like a dog around. Yeah, but I've now realized I met some friends who have cats, and I'm like, you know, cats, which I thought weren't great. I'm like, all right, cats may be all right. So we'll see. We'll see what's up.
You know, one of the questions I had, I forgot to ask you, would you rather have a dog with a cat's personality, or would you rather have a cat with a dog's personality?
I honestly, I'd take a cat with a dog's personality. I think. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
That's true. Cats are. I feel like they're low maintenance.
Yeah. I just feel
they
like
just chill. Like
yeah, cats have some redeem. I think the main thing I don't like about cats is how they. I mean, I don't know a lot about cats, so I know cat lovers will be all on me. You know, so I don't make. I haven't met that many cats to really make a meaningful comment. But my perception is like
it's gonna be a boycott. Hashtag Andy.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. I mean, I love dogs. I love how like loving and personable and loyal they are, and you know, a cat with those characteristics, because that would be so novel.
Right.
You know, I would be like, yeah, all right, I'll take that. Cool. Because I there are dogs who are more like I had a Yorkie. My family had a Yorkie who was a very like laissez-faire. So I already know what that's like. Right. So I would for sure go with it.
I honestly hate cats. I'm sorry to all the cat lovers out there. Facts are facts. I've had numerous stories. There's I babysitted my cousin's cat once. And I've never heard a cat purr in real life. Okay. Have you?
I'd like to be able to say I have. I honestly can't recall.
Dude, it sounds like like they ate a cell phone.
Okay.
And there's a cell phone vibrating.
Okay.
My cousins were traveling somewhere, and I had to call them. I'm like, dude, something's up with the cat.
Right.
It's making a sound. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's coming from its belly. Like, dude, I'm pretty sure it's purring.
yeah. That's classic.
But yeah, I mean, cats are cool, but I just find them like, I don't know. It's just something about them.
Yeah, that's funny.
I thought about getting a dog, man. I was like, so I've been in this condo for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm actually moving out.
Oh, okay.
Next month.
Okay.
So the next set of episodes that are coming are going to be the last ones here.
Okay, got it.
We're going to we're moving to a different studio.
Okay.
An actual studio space, possibly. Or I may set it up in the basement of my parents for the time being.
Sure.
Until things kind of resume back to normal in Toronto.
Yeah.
Which may not be until God knows when.
It feels like it'll be a bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's a reasonable estimate based on what's going on. Yeah.
Right. Where's the first place you'd want to travel once things open up? Is travel on your mind this year, or? I
mean, yeah. My realistic target, like I said, I have a professional conference in New Orleans in October. I would love to be able to go to that. I think that's look. Do I hope that the European Soccer Championships are going to be going on across Europe in June? Yeah, I do. That seems like a stretch for me where we're sitting today.
Right.
You know, that's I would love to be there. I was supposed to be there last year. Like I said, it was like going to be the biggest thing.
Is this UEFA or is this?
Exactly. Okay. It's UEFA European. So it's like the World Cup, but it's only European teams.
Right. And it happens every 2 years? Or?
Every four.
Every four. But it's like every 2 years after the World Cup. So it's like
exactly
the alternate, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's probably the second biggest soccer tournament in the world behind the World Cup.
Right. That'd be dope. Have you ever attended like a soccer game outside? You went to London?
I watched an Arsenal game in London. I saw Arsenal play Lyon in a friendly match. So that was like definitely a life highlight for me. But that's not enough for me. I need to watch more soccer. I wasn't into traveling when I was younger. I'm getting into it more now.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, Europe in June seems a stretch, but New Orleans in October. I mean, I hope so. Otherwise, Florida in December at least.
Yeah.
Like,
have you been to New Orleans before? Or?
I've never been. I know it's a cool city, and wouldn't mind watching a Saints game.
Yeah, with Super Bowls coming up.
Yeah, it's like I'm not a massive football fan, but I follow. Like, I'll check the stats, I'll check the scores just to keep up with it. But I'm not gonna go watch like a full game.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably just gonna watch the Super Bowl, to be honest with you.
yeah, that's fair.
Just an excuse to eat wings and beer.
Yeah, that's the game I'm actually least interested in. I'm more interested in the path to like get to the finals, the playoffs, the wild card. I like that more.
Oh, like
once the Super Bowl rolls around, I actually don't care that much anymore.
That's true. That's true. Like the wild card games are usually like that's what I think it was it last year? I think the Hail Mary by like Aaron Rodgers, but that guy's another.
Yeah, he had a big year. He had a big year.
Yeah. You know, as we're kind of winding down, when it comes to nutritional advice, what are some of your last words with regards to nutrition? You know.
Well, okay, I'm going to drop a couple things quick. Mm-hmm. So I would say, first of all, I mean, the one thing, besides eating more vegetables and more broad vegetables, one of the more broad array vegetables, one of the main things that if I just pluck someone off the street, I could say one thing, I would say diversify your protein intake. You know, what does that mean? It's that, yeah, beef and chicken are cool, great, no problem. Mm-hmm. But, you know, other sources of protein have a lot to offer, like beans, like tofu, okay, like fish, right? So I would say that.
Sorry about that, guys. A little bit of a technical glitch here, but we're back. So we were talking about sodium.
Yep.
And I was mentioning how there's a lack of understanding, I feel like, with a lot of people when it comes to sodium intake.
Yep.
But fortunate for me, you brought a book.
I brought one of my books. I mean, 3 of my books center around sodium intake, right? So. Right. I mean, I did bring you my low sodium cookbook, so you can read that. You can use that to your heart's content. I'm pretty sure it's in the bag. Yeah, I think it is.
Nice.
Sodium is one of those things. You know, guys especially statistically consume too much, and you know the reality is pretty much this is what follows. I mean, high sodium intake is a risk factor for high blood pressure. High blood pressure is one of the most common reasons why guys are medicated by pharmaceutically or prescribed medication. And high blood pressure is also a risk factor for erectile dysfunction if you need extra motivation.
Right.
You know, so sodium's a thing. It's a thing, especially for guys. We consume too much.
Way too much. Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes from a lot of meals out, restaurant meals, packaged food, frozen food, stuff like that. So
the number of times I've ordered Uber Eats.
Sure.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I have food, I can cook, but it's like, you know, you get lazy and it's like, you know, screw it, I'm just gonna order food.
I got you.
The thing is like, we don't know what goes in there. Right. And that's
true. I mean, there's a reason why it tastes so good, right? But look, I'm not like ordering food, going to restaurants, loved it, right?
Yeah.
You know, but
don't get me wrong. I love going out and stuff, but I realized that I'm going to try to be a little bit better this year and cook a little bit more at home.
I like that.
So I know exactly what I'm putting into my body.
Yeah,
right?
You got 3 cookbooks to inspire you, yes. So you're going to be well set.
Thank you, my man.
Yeah, no worries.
You know, you talked about expanding your protein intake and the type of protein.
Yep.
You know, we think about chicken, beef, and, you know, I think, you know, pescatarian diet, fish, of course, and tofu. But I think this is a question catered towards my vegan friends out there.
Sure.
You know, a lot of times, you know, I'm going to use my best friend as an example. Like I've noticed one thing that he's gotten a little bit more skinnier, I think, in terms of his muscle mass and whatnot.
Sure.
And, you know, we talked about this in the last podcast, but what are some good substitutes for protein?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question because this actually is a challenge that some people who become vegans or vegetarians faces.
Right.
If they don't have the right education or self-education or get some guidance from a dietitian, they may not know how to balance their consumption, right? And to get enough protein and get enough nutrients and stuff like that. And so to your question, well, as a vegan, what are your protein options? Well, you know, legumes are going to play a big role. Mm-hmm. Lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, black beans, and that family of foods. As an extension of that, soy, edamame, tofu, tempeh, that's going to play a big role. Now, nuts and seeds, yet another food that's going to play a big role. Now, if you're a vegan today, you also have the luxury of the wide array of vegan meat alternative products that exist. Beyond Meat Burger, Eve's Ground Round, Gardein product line. So you have more options than you ever had before.
That's so true. Like even now when you go to fast food places, like they have those options. You know what's crazy? I watched this documentary on, it wasn't on Beyond Meat, but it was talking about meat that's synthetically made in labs.
Yeah. I have an article on that. My volunteer article from a lab grown meat. Yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the article about?
So it was literally just an exploration about like, is the future of meat lab grown? I honestly can't recall the contents of it because a volunteer wrote it for me. But it's on my website. So if you type in Andy the RD lab grown meat, Google will probably pull it for you.
Right. It's crazy though, because I think the documentary was talking about how they made, I think it was a quarter pounder.
Okay, I think I saw that. Yeah.
And you know how much it cost? Like $400K or something like that. It was
right.
It was ridiculous.
That's something for the future.
So the biggest problem right now about that is because I think what they do is they actually like chemically make red blood cells, and from there, they turn it into meat of some sort, and it tastes exactly like meat, which is crazy.
Right.
Because that's I think there's a lot of ethics behind, this whole vegan movement and ethical and what you put into your body.
Right.
And I get that. I'm all for that. I think that, we're not going to be at the trajectory and rate that we're going right now, man.
Yeah.
Like at the rate that the population is growing and the shit that we're eating as well.
Right.
Like it gets you thinking what kind of food's going to be available in the world 50 years from now.
Right.
Let alone 25 years from now, right?
Right.
It's like, the fact that chickens, for example, we can pump them with GMOs and hormones and have a fully grown chicken or hen within 3 months it's mind-boggling. So those are things that have kind of crossed my mind if I were to ever go down the route of being a pescatarian and potentially being vegetarian or vegan.
Nope.
And me, don't get your hopes too high.
All good. No, for me, like the thing is, like my philosophy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to add on to that initial question, I don't need you to be a pescatarian or a vegan or vegetarian. I love you to eat more like one because I think it's in the best interest of your health.
Right.
Right. But I don't need you to label yourself or convert to any sort of style of eating. I just love you to eat more like one because there's value nutritionally in that world.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, people go vegan. There's ethical, environmental, economical considerations.
Right.
One of the three or all three. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps none of the above and some other reason which I'm not aware of. Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's so true. I mean, I think there's great to be like activism is awesome. We live in a world where it's important to voice your opinion and
Right.
whatnot. But I think there's a difference between education, and then just instilling your views on someone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think when the vegan movement first came around, there was this idea of just, oh, you eat meat, you're a horrible person.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely the cliche. That's definitely been made light of on YouTube and stuff like that. And there's certainly like a subset of the population.
It's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Now I think that with the world, like for example, this pandemic, it gets you thinking like a lot of the diseases that started like SARS, swine flu,
Right.
H1N1, they originated from, or it started with the consumption of some sort of animal.
Right.
I think mostly speaking, actually.
I think so. Like I'm not like that sounds right based on.
I could be wrong, by the way. I'm no expert.
Exactly. Neither am I. But I mean, swine flu. I mean,
Yeah,
it's in the.
It gets you thinking, and I agree with you. I think eating more vegetables, having more greens on your plate. I love kale too.
Good.
Kale,
Nice.
broccoli are my go-to. What's your favorite type of breakfast? Like, what do you?
My favorite type of breakfast. Well, I mean, honestly, right now I'm a big fan. I mean, I love good old fashioned like bagels and peanut butter, bagels and eggs, pistachios and fruit, just like stuff like that. That's like my go-to right now.
Right.
That'll be the first thing I often eat in a day. Yeah.
Right. Has there been? I think that's what's the most important meal in your opinion? I was gonna say breakfast, but like, what do you think is the most important meal?
I mean, how I define it. So there's two different definitions, I guess. For myself personally, from the personal perspective, I mean, I eat my largest meal at night because that's when I'm the most relaxed. That's when I can just like put on my DAZN, watch my sports, my soccer, and just chill.
Right.
So for me, that is my most important meal. I mean, yeah, it's my biggest meal. Yeah, it's where I get my kale in, but it's my most important meal because that's when I'm chilling. I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what your most important meal is. I can't tell anyone. It's the meal. Like let's use breakfast as an example, right? Some people say because now there's two schools of thought. There's like, okay, there's breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and then there's intermittent fasting, and they're conflicting, almost like completely conflicting. But if someone eats their most nutrient dense meal at breakfast and they love breakfast, and they kind of have less time to relax, enjoy food throughout the rest of the day, for that person, breakfast is probably the most important meal of the day.
Facts, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But for someone else, breakfast may be something like what I used to do, or many people might do. They wake up super early just to get it in because they think they need it,
Right.
but really they could just be sleeping in and just eat later, and they're probably going to be okay.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong. Everyone's different. The way people live is different, and so yeah, it's
interesting because like I feel like Like for me, I always thought that the first meal of the day is always important, but I guess it depends what you do, like when you exercise as well, right? Like I work out at noon every day. So
Right.
the issue that I have with intermittent fasting is I don't end up eating until 1:32.
Sure.
And then when I work out, I realize that I'm not able to perform as high as I
Yeah.
thought as versus my evening workouts because I don't have the energy to work out.
Right.
Versus having breakfast first thing in the morning at, let's say, 7:38 in the morning.
Right.
By the time noon rolls around, I can work out then.
Yeah.
right?
So for you,
yeah.
I think intermittent fasting is not a really a viable or advisable thing. If you're my client, I'd probably say, listen, like it's probably not serving you to do that on those days.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Just I would look at that objectively and say, if it's ruining your workout, like what are you getting from that?
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
to say that you did it.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
And so, and look, and don't get me wrong, stuff like fasting and all this other stuff. I mean, cool frameworks works for some people, but it's not all fun and games. There's downsides to all this stuff too.
Right.
It's not all like a
yeah.
good time. Like it's not for everyone for good reason, and it might not be for you for good reason, just as equally as it may be for you.
Right.
So
it's true. It's true. And speaking of workouts, what's your favorite workout? Like, what's your favorite style of workout?
I mean, honestly, like right now, what do? I mean, I'll try and play soccer, even though it's cold, I still play.
Okay.
I mean, I'll do the things I do with any regularity: soccer, yoga. When I got some push-ups, and I have a pull-up and dip thing in my place that I bought just to like stay on point to have some mode of exercise. So I do those. I've just cycled through those, right? A little bit of mobility, a little bit of strength, a little bit of like cardiovascular.
Nice,
That's my jam.
Okay.
But there's no right or wrong. It just happens to be what I do.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's good. Like, yeah, I think for me, I like running. Running's been like a big thing. I think that's grown on me over the last 12 months. Kettlebell.
Yeah, I have a couple kettlebells too. I'm really enjoying those myself.
That's one thing that's grown on me during this lockdown.
They're fun.
They're fun. They kick your ass.
Yeah, you can do work with them.
And there's so much you can do with them.
Yeah, I agree.
I have started. If you know Sergio, I'm Sergio coming on the podcast on Thursday. I forgot what the name of the gym is. Shoot, it's on. They're big on kettlebells.
Okay.
On King Street.
Okay.
It's not coming to me, but yeah, kettlebells. I forgot that there's that bar.
Oh, like that sledgehammer type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that looks cool.
It's heavy, man.
I've never dabbled in that, but yeah.
But that's awesome, man. But listen, Andy, it was a pleasure having you today. It went by quick, actually. Damn.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure. We already talked about your parting words, but is there anything else you want our listeners to tune into? Any advice going into 2021?
I would say, honestly, just, we talked about that joke about stuff online. I mean, if you feel like burdened or encumbered by, what your friends tell you about food or what you read online, it might be a good idea for you to, speak with a professional about it. It's a modest investment for what is going to be a meaningful quality of life and peace of mind.
Yeah.
So
where can people find you?
Yeah, AndyTheRD.com. On Insta, AndyTheRD. So Andy the RD, RD stands for Registered Dietitian. So my moniker thing was Andy the RD. That's what it is.
Right.
So it's Andy the RD. Honestly, you can go on Google if you type Andy and like a nutrition topic. There's a decent chance I have an article on it and Google will catch it. So I mean, you can do that if you type Andy soy. I probably got my articles on soy will come up and so on and so forth. So it's not too hard to find me.
Yeah, and plus I'll include Andy's handle and whatnot, all the information that you guys need to follow his content, amazing content. Guys, I think the biggest thing is, nutrition. We talk about our body as our temple. What we put into our body is very important. A relationship with food is very important. We end up spending so much money on things that we really don't need. And, I think one of the fallacies in my circle or network or even friends is like, for example, there's all these benefits we get from work and stuff, and even like seeing a nutritionist. Oh, it's good. I'm gonna Google it. I'll be fine. I'm just gonna eat healthy. You never end up eating healthy, and you'd be surprised. I feel like when you meet a nutritionist and sit down with them, some of the habits that you've kind of built since you were a kid, and your perspective of certain food groups that have been like literally like instilled in you without you knowing. Right. And that need to change, essentially, right?
It's our whole life guides how we think about food.
Yeah.
It's our whole life experience. And so sometimes people have really great ways to think about food, or they have dysfunctional ways of thinking about it. That's just a direct result of their life experience to that point.
Yeah.
And so part of my job is to help them understand
initially before you walk in, I was like, carbs are bad, Sonny. No carbs tonight. But like, it's true. It really depends on, there's other things in pizza. That's just the carb components, right?
Right. If
that
you
may
sat down
affect
and
your
tracked,
metabolism.
if you trace back, where did you start? How did you start thinking about it? Why? Where did that thought first enter your mind? Because you didn't, you weren't thinking about that at probably not at 5 years old.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
At what
yeah.
age did you start thinking about it, and how did it manifest? It's fascinating stuff.
It is. It is. What do you? I feel like the younger generation, the new generation, they're gonna be a little bit more mindful in terms of food, and the pyramid is definitely going to be different. I think. How would you think the rainbow looks like today versus what it looked like in the 90s?
We do have a new food guide since the rainbow, and it's not. It's tough to explain. It's actually nothing like the old one.
Yeah.
It's much more general guidance. You honestly, like, you should pull it up and look at it. We can talk about it. It's just a different vibe. It doesn't recommend servings in the same way, because the reality is everyone's needs are so different, and Health Canada just accepted that, and they just give more gentle guidance and loose guidance as to what to do. They give more. It is really hard to explain, because it's not like the pyramid, it's not like the rainbow. It's a complete divergence from both.
I'm looking at it right now. It's a complete. You're absolutely right. Like, there's a whole Canada.ca actually has an entire resource kit. And it's not even a pyramid. It's literally,
Yeah, it has general concepts. I wrote an article on my website as well, just to kind of break down what I think the strengths and weaknesses of that guide are. But
I'm going to share that. I think that'll be useful.
I'll send you the link directly.
But send me links as well if there's anything that you feel is important as well. I'd love to share that with our listeners and whatnot. But Andy, thank you, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's
awesome.
a pleasure.
I'm gonna see you again.
Yeah, I hope so.
We'll do a pulse check at the end of the year.
100%. I'd love to come back.
And then we'll take it from there.
All right. Awesome. Enjoy your books.
Of course. I'll give you a review on the books as well. I'm a big reader too, I need new books.
Awesome.
So appreciate it.
All right.
No
worries,
brother.
man.
Cheers.
All the best.
Everybody else, peace.